Well, Jessi, tell us all about Taste Buds Kitchen and tell us how this whole thing got started.
Yes. All right. Thanks for asking. So, I don't know if I describe me first. Taste buds were one and the same. It's been 17 years now. But I'll tell you my story, which leads to Taste Buds Kitchen story. So, I'm a founder of 17 years, but back up, I'm 43 years old. I'm from Maryland. I was one of 23 first cousins. So, I was always around kids. I'm the third oldest. It's Pied Piper. So, always having fun in the kitchen and with all the kids in my family. I also love business. I love numbers. I love math. I was doing math problems as a kid for fun with my dad. So I grew up, I went to Harvard. I majored in economics. I swam Division One.
Oh,
Sports, the competition part of me in that. And I kind of followed that path and took a job in Wall Street. So I moved to New York City 2003 when I graduated college and worked in finance for 7 years. During that time, I had fun learning, but I did find I was with people between the age of 20 and 40 who wore a suit. I wasn't doing anything creative. I wasn't around kids. None of my family lived in New York. Like I said, I was from Maryland. So I started teaching kids to bake for fun on the weekends once or twice a month. So it was never a business idea. It was just something I wanted to do, and people loved it. I had, a celebrity come to my first class with his child. I didn't even recognize him until after he left. Where it took off, right? People wanted me to do birthday parties. They wanted to know if I would do summer cooking camps for their kids. I had to decline. I was working 60, 80-hour weeks in Wall Street. And that's kind of how the idea was born. So fast forward a year, now you're in 2008, heart of recession. I worked for Bear Stearns. Bear Stearns was tanking. JP Morgan was going to buy us.
yeah, I remember that.
Yes, I remember it. I worked in fixed income sales and trading, so I was right on the floor and kind of in front of all this, watching it on TV. So I raised my hand and said, I want to be laid off. I'm going to leave and I want to pursue my business, which I've started full time. And I knew at that point we were going to do all ages and all kinds of food. So Taste Buds Kitchen was officially born. So what we do is we're a culinary entertainment experience for kids and adults. So ages 2 to 99. We have a beautiful kitchen. It's 2,000 square feet. You come in and you cook or bake, start to finish, the menu that you've signed up for. So on the kids side of things, we have summer camp, school break camp, every day school's out, we are in. We have birthday parties. We have caregiver and me classes for the 2-year-olds. We have teen classes. We have family classes, all about having fun in the kitchen. And then on the adult side of things, we're BYOB typically. So you can bring your own beer or wine, and you can do a date night class, an adult class. We do corporate team building events. We've done 30th birthdays, 50th birthdays, 70th birthdays. So that is in essence Taste Buds Kitchen.
Wow. You followed your passion. You went from Harvard, Wall Street to saying, I'm giving up the Wall Street job. Jessi, what in the world did your family and friends say when you were leaving Wall Street to pursue this?
Yes, that's a great question. So my Wall Street colleagues thought I was nuts, 100%. They're like,
Okay.
right, what are you doing? And then I remember one of the guys is like, hey, I think you're going to franchise this one day. I knew nothing about franchising. I was like, I don't think so. I don't even know what you mean, really. My reference to franchising was McDonald's. So I quickly, blinked that off. My family was supportive, but definitely after, I remember a call with my dad. At the time I was 26, wasn't married, didn't own a home, lived in a 1-bedroom apartment in Manhattan. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm sure. He's like, he's worked 2 companies his entire life, right? You have a good job. You have insurance, right? Like
You
you're
have
able to
benefits,
go on
right?
vacation. Yes, exactly. All these things that you aspire for your kids. And he's like, but he also had owned businesses. He'd owned them on top of his job. So entrepreneur in that way, but never, fully self-employed. And I said, I am sure. I was like, why not me? Why not now? And I just felt like I had to do it. So after that conversation, he was supportive, my biggest fan. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. I tend, good or bad, my husband always says this, I don't really care what other people think. So
Were you always that way? Oh, that's incredible.
I was the kid, like when you're 6, not getting invited to a friend's birthday party. My mom was devastated for me. I was like, it's okay. So I don't know if some character trait I have, again, good or bad, I'm sure it's both, but I just felt like it could work. I felt like I could figure it out. I wanted the challenge. And for me, I'm just happy doing it because I love business. I love numbers. I love figuring things out. I love baking and I love kids. And this has really been a way for me to combine all those things I'm passionate about. And then when we franchised, which was another story, like how we started franchising and why we decided to do that, but we've been doing that now for 10 years. It's been another incredible journey just to connect with like-minded individuals from across the country, many husband-wife teams, but certainly not all. We have, daughter, mother-in-law teams. We have individuals who are married, but not their spouse isn't involved. We have single individuals. Just helping them to realize their dreams too. They didn't even know existed, right? Taste Buds Kitchen is an industry that you probably don't know about, a lot of people. So if you're not aware, we have 12 kitchens located coast to coast. If you haven't been before, we're opening more. Hopefully you'll get the chance. Or you could consider opening your own Taste Buds Kitchen as well.
A promo spot right there.
Thank you.
Jessi, I want to go back to before you franchise though. So you start opening this first company on location in the Chelsea section of New York City, right? And during the Great Recession, what was that like? Did you find yourself that people kind of shrugged it off because they'll pay for their kids to do anything, right? They're not going to hold back. At least I found that too in my business. Yes. And that had to give you such a sense of reassurance that you were doing the right thing, because there was a lot of people that were out of work. There were a lot of businesses that were struggling. And I would imagine that the moms and dads, they were paying for their kids to take these cooking classes.
Yeah, they were. And you're exactly right. I started in the heart of the recession in New York City, but we did grow every year. Right. So when you're starting, you're small, but I didn't rent our current lease. We took out in 2010. So we've been in the same space. It's been almost 15 years now. For the first 2 years, what I did is I rented restaurants that weren't open for lunch. So I would literally walk the streets and I would knock on the door and I would say, hey, you're not open for lunch. Can I give you $75? Take over your facility and do a class. And they all said yes. Today, probably this wouldn't happen. But at that point, right, businesses were struggling to hold on. And so they were happy for me to use the space. We did that for 2 years. Again, I had a low overhead, right? It's just me and my carrying accessories and my team. One of my team members actually was the one that says, we need a space. This is backbreaking. We're literally carrying, stand mixers on the subway. Every restaurant is different. We were working with about 7 restaurants, Upper East Side and Tribeca and, all over. So that's when we actually signed our lease in 2010. And that was a game changer. That was a big risk again, right? Because now you have a commercial lease in Manhattan. But yeah, it's been great. We've grown every year. And I think our revenue streams, to your point, nothing's recession proof, right? People are going to have ebbs and flows in spending, but generally you're going to choose to spend on your children, if anywhere, right? I know I certainly would. Between birthday parties and then summer camp, which in some ways is similar to childcare, because if parents are working, kids need somewhere to go when school isn't in session. So we have the great cooking camps, a lot of baking themes. Baking 101 is one of our most popular. And then we have the adults. So we have the corporate team building. We have the date night. So you have different revenue streams with different client bases, which helps to round out your revenue streams.
Percentage of your business is kids versus adults?
A great question. It varies by location, but on average, it'll be about 60% kids and about 40% adults.
Okay. Which is really great for you, because at the end of the day, we need to keep the turnstile spinning, right? Inside our facilities, and that you're bringing in people for different ages at totally different times of day.
Times, yes.
Yeah. And it was also so smart, I think, of you guys to use other people's facilities when you were starting out, rather than you didn't need to take that risk of opening up a facility, which quite honestly, you wouldn't even have known really what size footprint you needed.
I didn't know how big. I didn't know which part of town, right, for the city. All the things that we now have software that helps us do and determine when we're opening a new location. I didn't have that. I just had my gut, and we tried restaurants, like I said, all over the city. So we were sort of different communities and really could get a feel for it that way. So yeah, it worked out.
Well, you were cruising along, and then around 2014-ish, I think, is when you decide you're going to franchise your business. So you had been around about 7 years. Can you share with me, like, was there a defining moment or something where you're like, franchising is the way for me to go? Because the seed was planted many, many years ago by your colleague in Wall Street.
It's so funny. So no, what happened was people asked. I fell into franchising 100%. So in New York City, when I was running my kitchen, people would come and they'd be traveling from, visiting a friend, a cousin, a college roommate. They'd come to a class. and they say, this is amazing. Are you going to do this? I'm from Austin, Texas. Are you going to open one there? Or I'm from Miami, Florida. And I said, no, I don't see that for myself. I'm so glad you're loving it. I hope you'll come back. And they said, well, could you teach me how to do this? Again, like out of nowhere. And I said, I don't know. Let me finish growing the bottle. Let me develop the revenue streams and see where it takes me. And I'll take down your name and email. So in 2012, 13, when I started entertaining the idea, it was more like, okay, I'd figured out the revenue streams. I'd figured out the model. I met my husband. We'd gotten married. And I was talking about like, okay, what's my next step? Are we going to open another location of Taste Buds Kitchen in New York City? Right? How are we going to scale this business? I'm from Maryland. We had hoped to move back here one day. And so I said, you know what? I have a lot of people on this list who've inquired essentially about franchising. I don't know a lot about it. So I bought Franchising for Dummies, right? Like I read all the books. I Googled, which Google wasn't what it was. I started talking to anyone I could find about it. And I started to get excited because initially I would think of a McDonald's or, some of the bigger brands that you may know of. But I started to really envision like a boutique franchise brand where I could partner with like-minded individuals around the country, share with them the expertise that I had and help them to do the same thing in their markets. So that's what led to franchising. We then hired a franchise consultant, flew out, talked to him. It was in California. And my husband is an architect, did commercial real estate in New York City for many years. And he ended up leaving his job around the same time to join us full time. So he has been great because he helps all the location through site selection, construction, which is like his wheelhouse. He's great at it. All of our ownership groups currently include females, with a lot of times haven't been through commercial real estate. So it's a very scary, daunting part of the process. So he's helped all the locations to, find a great location, open, be built beautifully. And that's kind of how we got to today.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.